Hi, everyone, and welcome to Jewish National Fund USA's Real Estate Division event, From Breaking Glass Ceilings to Building Our Future. My name is Adam Belfer, and I'm a principal of HIG Real Estate Partners overseeing Western US acquisition and co-chair of the Real Estate Division in Greater Los Angeles. On International Women's Day, we hear from four real estate icons who are true inspirations for their drive to overcome career challenges in the face of adversity, for their philanthropic commitment to making this world a better place, and for assuring that Israel continues to be a beacon of light for so many. Welcome to both our current Real Estate Division members and those who are new to our JNF family. Before we hear from our panelists, I'd like to remind everyone what brings us all together, supporting the land and people of Israel. For the past 120 years, JNF has strategically implemented nation-building initiatives focused on housing, special needs, water, sustainability, fire and rescue, agricultural R&D, Israel education, and so much more. JNF has experienced unparalleled growth, especially in the past 2 years. Despite the challenges bringing people together during COVID-19, JNF remains a 9-figure annual campaign and is $900 million on its way to achieving its billion-dollar roadmap. I'm optimistic we can bridge this gap on today's call. With 80,000 donors across 50 states, JNF is truly the future of pro-Israel support in America. Part of this organizational growth includes launching a national real estate division with chapters in LA, Chicago, Miami, Atlanta, the tri-state area, Boston, and most recently, Philadelphia. With over 6,000 real estate professionals nationwide, this professional network is an integral part of our growth. I now ask you to join us. Join us as we build sustainable communities for hundreds of thousands of people in the Negev and Galilee region. Join us as we educate the next generation of American Jewish leaders who are proud to represent Israel amongst family, friends, colleagues, and wherever they may be. Join us as we invest in thousands of Asian and African agricultural students who come to Israel to study, where a dollar from America travels to Israel and elevates the quality of life for people living in developing countries. Take a moment now to join our real estate division with a minimum $1,800 gift, which can also simultaneously serve as a high society membership in our National Women's for Israel group for the women in the audience. But why stop there? Consider joining our major donor societies, which start at $5,000 and automatically includes real estate division membership. Division membership comes with privileged inclusion in a members-only national real estate directory, as well as invitations to special events, both locally and nationally. I'd now like to hand over the microphone to our esteemed moderator for today's program, Jody Stein. Jody is not only a friend and fellow JNF leader, we both first got involved in the organization through JNF Future in New York City. Jody is also an experienced moderator and a fantastic attorney. Jody, take it away.
Wow, thank you, Adam, so much. Welcome, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. This is very exciting. My name is Jody Stein, and I'm a partner at Shepherd Mullen in the Real Estate, Land Use, and Environmental Group in the firm's New York City office, which is where I am right now. I have experience representing real estate developers, property owners, tenants, and lenders, advising on zoning and land use aspects of obtaining discretionary and as-of-right approvals or resolving issues that arise during the development and construction process. I am also a very proud member of JNF's Sapphire Society and Real Estate Cabinet and have been involved with JNF for over 10 years. I'm excited to moderate today's conversation with three incredible women leaders in the real estate industry. Throughout the program, please feel free to post questions in the chat and we'll address them at the end, only if the time permits. So to begin, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to please introduce yourself with your name and your company and briefly tell everyone how you found real estate or how real estate found you. I'm going to start with Goldie, please, and then we'll move to Jessica and then Karen.
Well, thank you. I guess what I'm going to first say that I will probably be the oldest person you see on the screen today. And I tried figuring out how many years that is. I've been in the business for 50 years and I started adding the numbers and I said, yes, it's 50. I'm now president of Millbrook Corporate Real Estate Services, but what I'm most proud of is I'm the founder of the Goldie Initiative, and I'll explain that in my 2 minutes allotted by Ms. Joni. I started my business career basically in advertising and worked for the best what I consider the best ad agency in the country with J. Walter Thompson. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, but then I went into real estate and I went with a company called Arthur Rubloff and Company, which was the largest real estate company in the Midwest. And I was an office leasing broker. In those days, they didn't have office leasing brokers, but 20 years into it, I was their top producer nationwide. Now, I make that a very important distinction. I was the top producer who happened to be a woman. I wasn't the top female producer. And after 20 years, I started my own company called Goldie B. Wolf and Company, which became the largest woman-owned commercial company in the country. And I sold it to a New York Stock Exchange company. And then I pivot. I hate that word, but that's the new word in life is pivot, right? And I wanted to give back to the community basically that gave me so much. And I looked in the mirror and I said, what are the three most important elements? Well, first of all, it had to be a woman. It had to be in real estate. And obviously I wanted all these women to be CEOs of their own companies, just like I had the good fortune when I was with Goldie Wolf and Company. So I started the Goldie Initiative. And over the last 17 years, we have graduated, and this is, I take great pride. They call themselves Goldie Scholars, 100 scholars nationwide. We're on 16 campuses. We give them financial support, they mentor, and we network with them. And the most important part of these women are just spectacular. We have a gala every year, and we call the Sheroes. You know, these are women that we honor every year. I never knew what a Shero was before, but I found out it was a female version of a hero, of course. And we've had fabulous Sheroes. This year is Pam Bonham, and we have a gala. And I had it to say, this is how we raise most of our money. And now I've given you my 2-minute elevator speech. Every year, these young scholars meet with Penny Pritzker and myself, and they have to give a 2-minute elevator speech. And I've never given one before. So this is my 2-minute elevator speech for 50 years of real estate.
You did excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Jessica.
Thanks, Jody. And Goldie, I loved your elevator speech. It was wonderful.
Would you write me a letter to that effect, please?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you today for International Women's Day. My name is Jessica Sherman. I work at Douglaston Development. We are a real estate firm in New York. We've been around 40 years. We develop market rate and affordable housing in New York and also in a few other markets. I work on our affordable housing team and particularly run our preservation division. So I'm working with government agencies, local communities to build and preserve housing throughout New York City.
I guess that means I'm up. Right? Okay. I'm Karen Kennedy. Hello and good morning, everyone. Happy International Women's Day. Goldie, I come close to your 50. I've been doing this 45 years.
I beat you.
I came into it through family legacy. My grandfathers on both sides, paternal, maternal, developers. My dad was he thought he was a contractor. He was really a developer. I didn't really know what that meant as a kid, but I've come to realize. I tried to stay away from the family business, but that didn't work. I have a master's degree in journalism, so I can talk my way through just about anything and write my way out of almost everything. But I started my company after having come up through the ranks in real estate, being almost always the only woman in the room, let alone at the table. And I took advantage of that as I pounded my head on the glass ceiling. And now, almost 14 years ago, I started my own company in the middle of the, what shall we call it, the Great Recession. Is that what it's come to be known as? And I have an incredible group of people without whom I would not have the success that I've enjoyed. And I'm just very happy to be at this gathering to see women who have had similar opportunities and experiences and want to give back, which is what, for me, it's all about now. That and my grandchildren, of course.
And I see that my mother just joined. She's the grandmother to my children, which reminds me that I should mention also that I came to real estate through my family business as well. My dad started a real estate business, first in construction. And when I finished my master's in social policy, I sort of realized I could utilize my passion for socially oriented work at my family business, where they already had a flourishing affordable housing division.
And I had nothing.
And we'll get into that. But to piggyback on Jessica and your family business, that leads into my first question, which is, I think there is something really special about being in real estate. I know I'm biased because I'm in real estate, but it is something that we spend most days, all days, thinking about, talking about, and it has a very special relationship to JNF's mission. And I know you and your family are deeply rooted in real estate and in JNF, but can you expand on your family's involvement in JNF and whether your work in real estate had any impact on your level of involvement in JNF?
Absolutely. It's interesting. I know many people on this call are part of the JNF real estate division. I think the reason so many of us in real estate are drawn to JNF is because of how tangible the work we do is on a day-to-day basis in our own lives, and how tangible the work is that JNF does in Israel. And it's not just the tzedakah boxes and the trees that we all know about, but it's building infrastructure in the Negev, promoting farms with cutting edge technologies, building a home for children with disabilities to live and flourish at in Israel. So I think a lot of the times when I'm talking to my colleagues about JNF, or to some of the people I'm lucky enough to know through my work at JNF, we're excited about being able to do something that we can go visit. And just the same way I might go to the Bronx to visit a project we work on, I can also go to Israel and say, hey, Adam Belfer and I raised the money for this fire truck. And Jody and I work together to figure out what this community in the Negev should look like. So to me, that's really exciting. And it's something, how I came to JNF is my family is has always been community focused. Both my dad, who was passionate about real estate and about working with communities, and my mom, who I mentioned was on the line, have sort of dedicated their life to working with others, to finding solutions to complex problems. And both in their sort of personal and professional worlds, they've been role models to me. So seeing them and the joy they got of their commitment to JNF is another big part of that for me.
And just to piggyback, you've gone to Israel and seen some of the projects that you've worked on.
Yeah, I've been to Israel with JNF 4 or 5 times. And I think once Adam and I don't remember, it was so many years ago, if we co-hosted or just went on the same mission, where we were able to bring friends who had maybe donated $50 or $100 before. And now they're some of the biggest leaders in JNF's organization because they got to see what they were working towards and contributing to. And that's so meaningful. It's more than just somewhere you build a tree. It's a real connection to a group of people and a community that I know is very important to me and to my entire extended family.
Can I just add, if I can, it is so heartwarming to see Jessica and Karen talk about their role models in terms of their family, because that's what the Goldie Initiative is all about, because the women that we put through don't necessarily have those role models. And the fact that you had them and you saw how important they were and their relationships, you can't get that out of a book. And I'm so happy that you had that as an opportunity. And that's, and more importantly, that you both took it.
And that is a theme that we are going to discuss, actually. So Karen, I hear that you have a special connection to the founding fathers and mothers of the state of Israel. I got to hear your story. It's an amazing story. Can you please share it with us?
Sure, it really is. I've been very blessed in my life to have had a grandfather after my grandmother passed in 1960, who they were friends and with the founding fathers and mothers. So when I would go to Israel to be that person to reciprocate socially for my grandfather every summer. Starting when I was 13, I would go by myself. That was how safe the world was then. My mother would stick me on a plane, and it was 27, 28 hours and several plane changes to get to Tel Aviv. And I'd get off the plane and I would spend the summer with my grandfather at the King David. Yeah, I know life was tough. But nonetheless, when he would go back and forth to the States, as he did all summer, I would spend my weekends in Ramat Gan, Ramat Aviv, at Golda's. I thought she was friends with my grandfather. And so I thought that's normal, like to wake up in the morning and go down for breakfast, and she's cooking breakfast with her cigarette and the ashes hanging from the cigarette. And she's cooking breakfast, and who's sitting at the table in the kitchen chopping chocolate so she can make Toll House cookies, right? Because there were none coming into the country. So it would be Ben Gurion chopping, or it would be Rabin, or it would be Dayan, or whomever. I never knew who was going to be downstairs. And it never fazed me, because although I knew who they were, to me, they were Papa's friends. They were Papa's friends. I mean, who can say that? It's crazy. And my mother and dad moved and made Aliyah in 1973, just before the Yom Kippur War. Their first Pesach that they spent in Israel was at Golda's. And they found, I think it was my sister or my brother found the afikomen, and it was my sister. And what she asked for, Golda said, okay, you found it, okay. So what would you like as a gift? To recognize you having found the afikomen? And the answer was a pencil bag for their book bag. Of all the things to ask for, right? It's really remarkable, but it really left an indelible impression as to what was important. And I've used some of the things that Golda told me in my business life. One of the things that she always said was, you can't solve problems if you can't look that person in the face. You have to be able to have a connection with them, or you can't move it forward. And that's why you've heard, I'm sure, stories of how she would go on a full moon into the desert by herself without any security or anything, and meet with King Hussein. And that was because if he had cut off water to Israel during any of the wars, we wouldn't be having these kinds of conversations. She lived what she said, and I found it to be ever so useful in moving myself through the business world. Quite something, yeah?
How incredible.
And she made great cookies, by the way.
And I'm not sure meeting face to face would have worked during a pandemic. So thank God, that came later.
Yeah.
But it is good advice. Always more gets done when you can meet face to face. That is incredible. So Goldie, I know you have several foundations, and there's one in particular which you talked about already, which is aptly named the Goldie Initiative. And as part of that initiative, you hold court one-on-one with your Goldie Initiative scholars in a program called, which I love this, Wednesdays with Goldie. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is, who these scholars are? And since you're working with these young women firsthand, can you tell us why, I think you'll agree, our future is so unbelievably bright?
Well, I'm really taken back with Karen and Karen's comments, because I think I have to explain, I'm a Holocaust survivor. So my mother and father came over on a boat with my brother and me. And so I never got to have grandmothers and grandfathers because they were not available to me. But what I did have is very determined, hardworking parents who had to come over with a babushka and nothing else and make a life in America. And the rest, they say, is history. So the role models I had was my mother, who worked full time all the time, and my father was a kosher butcher. And when I started this program, I said, you know what? I would like to provide some mentorship to some of these women. And it's not money. The money's the easy part. What do women need today? And I said, well, what if we just did a Wednesdays with Goldie? So every single Wednesday, I meet with all of these individuals, each Wednesday with somebody else. And it's an open agenda. What would you like to talk about? What's important to you? They're all scheduled. They're all graduate students at the top universities in the country. And so they talk about whatever's on their mind, what's ever in their heart. They'll talk about personal issues. They'll talk about getting jobs. Now, this is just one part of our program. We actually, as I said before, we mentor them. Every single one of these graduates has a mentor, so that through this 2-year process in college, they have someone to talk to. And these are accomplished women and men. We feel men are very important in our program. In fact, when I give speeches, I thank every man who's in the audience and ask them to stand up, and we applaud them. But I think the most important part is these women know that they're mentored and they have someone to call. The other thing that we look at is we actually get them involved in some kind of networking. If you're in real estate, we pay for their ULI membership. And I think that's just an important issue. And I think, as Karen and Jessica said, they've had mentors in their lives. And I think that's such an important part. And that's made them today who they are. So why is the future so bright? Because these individuals are just phenomenal. I'll give you an example. And again, I get more out of it than they do. One woman last year from University of Michigan did 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan. She was in graduate school at University of Michigan. And so she tells me she had a difficult time when she did her 2 tours of duty. She's a West Point cadet. She went to an HR person for a job, and they said, you know, you're not experienced in real estate, so you're not really competent to be on our roster. I, of course, called this HR person every word I could think of, which I can't do now because you're being recorded. And I said, you know what, why don't you make a list of all the stuff you learned in your 2 years of tour of duty Afghanistan, leading, and she led the survival, program. Put down what you learned in survival and then apply it to real estate. And I said, if we can't survive in real estate, I don't know what a better word is. And she put together a 5-page document. And I said to her, you know what? Why don't you go around this HR? It's not the right thing to say in public. And why don't you present this to the chairman of the board of your company that you're applying for, and just tell them what you did. Now, obviously, she didn't listen to me. She went back to the human resources, but she did have an appointment with the chairman of the board and showed him this list. Now I've circulated this list in terms of our entire community because it's spectacular. Now, how can you sit there and not, I'll use the Jewish word, kvel, that here you're helping a soldier who's done 2 tours of duty and is now into real estate. We've had a gal from Pakistan who's come to the United States, left her entire family because she doesn't think that there's enough opportunity in her own country for women in real estate. We have a university graduate student from University of Chicago that has a real job in one of the top companies in the country. And she's now built her very first 6-flat apartment building. She went and tried to get loans. She was rejected, but she kept, and I guess this is my motto, and I try and tell these young people, maybe this is old fashioned, but it still works for me. Persistence, hard work, and determination. Anything better than that? So once you say no, you go to the next one. So I'm blessed. I have 100 stories like this. And that's why I think that the real estate industry with these women, again, maybe we're selective because we take the brightest, the best, and I believe they're all are women anyway, but we take them on 16 campuses. They actually write applications, essays, we get referrals, we do personal interviews. And when I see these young women, the first couple of years, I really thought, oh my goodness, who's going to apply? I was really afraid, this is 17 years ago, who's going to apply for a scholarship? We now have, I think we had this last time, like 48 applications. And we can only take, this is the largest group we've ever had. We're the largest group of its kind, I'm told, in the country. And since someone says I'm wrong, call me and I'll maybe change that statement.
Wow.
And the gala that we raise almost $1 million every year. that helps us. So I will give a plug because obviously JNF is giving a plug. If you're interested, it's called the Goldie Initiative, September 22nd. Come, enjoy it. It's fun because these women are just really spectacular.
Goldie, I want to hire some of them. So you'll have to make sure you let us know how to get into your hiring network. They sound wonderful.
I think it's become a sidebar. If you're real serious, send me the information and I will get prospects to you. We're happy to do that. And we're doing it.
We'll talk offline.
And I assume that goes for anyone out there in the audience as well. You can contact Goldie if you're looking to hire. I think she has some great applicants, a good applicant pool. Goldie, you talk about persistence. Do you think that came from your mother?
Of course. I don't need a shrink to tell me that, in terms of, she had great losses. She came with 2 kids and a husband who worked hard. I remember carrying packages for her from my father's meat market. She never gave up. She, didn't know English. Of course, hard work, determination, persistence, and never giving up. I mean, you saw it in your family, I guess in Karen, your great-grandfather or grandfather, whatever, started. Look at all the, I am a real immigrant, legal immigrant. I am an immigrant who gave an opportunity in America. And so, of course, I don't think in 50 years, it hasn't changed. We can talk about that at a later point in time. It's hard work, persistent determination in whatever we do. And whether it's real estate or across the board, or whether it's men, women, or whatever you want to call.
Sorry, that's incredible. And say that again, Goldie.
I'm sorry, does that answer your question?
Yes, that was incredible. And, speaking of Karen's grandfather, from all I've heard about your childhood, I think it's, fair to say that your family inspired you to take risks in your career and leading to your remarkable success. You founded 2 companies and you have your active involvement in JNF and many other philanthropies. Can you tell us about perhaps your grandfather in particular, Lewis Boyer, and any advice that he gave you that you used as a foundation for your success?
Well, Papa was someone who never thought that I would end up in business. I honestly can say that. And my family, he developed cities. So I didn't want to compete. How do you compete with that, right? They couldn't get loans coming out of World War II. He was in partnership with Mark Taper and Ben Weingart. They couldn't get loans because they were Jews. So they formed their own banks and made it a pact that they would loan to each other first. So that's how they came up with the money to buy the land, to do the deal, and ultimately built and developed the city of Lakewood here in California. That being said, he also didn't believe in, he called everyone in the family, all the women in the family were called Dolly. That way he didn't have to worry about their names and be bothered with that. So I was amongst everybody was Dolly. So everybody else in the family was very hesitant to be around him because he was such a force. He was such a force. So I didn't see it that way. To me, he was Papa. He had Parkinson's. He couldn't pick up a cup and drink his tea. He had to drink it from the table, and I just kept filling it up again. I used to have him sprinkle sugar on his strawberries with his hand and on mine because he had Parkinson's, so his hand would shake and it would spread the sugar everywhere, and that was fine. My mother was aghast that that's how I dealt with my grandfather, her father. It was a very different relationship, very unique that I had. And during the early 60s, he took to making the vision that he and my grandmother had come up with, having been raised with nothing. And his vision, their vision, was to help young children who were identified and known to be very smart kids, but they came from such poor families that in order to have an opportunity not to be the kid that went to work, as each of them did, that they would have a school that would allow them to come have everything, a boarding school in Israel, and they would be taught there, and it would cost them nothing, and they would give back to the community and raise their family out of this abject poverty. And in doing so, they could improve their community. They would have brought their family up and made the world a better place. And that school is now the May Boyer High School in Jerusalem. It's been there 60 years. Has graduated kids that came out of World War II from the Holocaust and then had to go into camps from the British because they tried to get through the blockade right after the war. And one of these gentlemen who I came to know it became the Israeli ambassador to the Vatican. But his family, he lived for like 15 years in the camp on the coast where he was put there when they first came through the blockade. And he was arrested with his parents by the British. So I would tell you that I sit on the board of several organizations. JNF, of course, is one, and I'm a proud Sapphire member. But that being said, for me, the passion is with the Boyer School in Jerusalem to keep it strong, to keep that it's been there with a vision that came from my grandparents and their childhoods, and bringing themselves up and bringing all of these children with them. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And it's such a privilege to be part of that and to keep that piece of the legacy going forward. I'm the eldest of 6 kids. And so I'm the one that's been nominated. I was appointed by my brothers and sisters to be on this board. And it's quite something to go to Jerusalem and see the school. It really is. And it's one of many things that my grandfather did. There's so many to choose from. It's all about giving back and making that, taking what we've been blessed with and worked hard for. It makes me very emotional to think about what he has provided for us as a stepping stone. And I don't take it for granted ever, never.
It's very special and very blessed.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. I will definitely be looking into that school and would love to visit.
We could use help. There's a lot of kids, and we had to help them during the pandemic. They tend to come from the areas where, when they went home during the pandemic and the school was closed, they couldn't study remotely because they were religious homes or they had brothers and sisters. They had no electricity, none. So they couldn't charge laptops that we provided them with. So we opened the school back up for the dormitory portion, and we funded the whole thing to keep it going forward, to keep them educated. Incredible. For 2 years. But it's wow. It's just been something. They're amazing kids. Can't wait to see them again.
Wow. Do you have plans to go back?
June 2nd.
There you go. Very exciting.
Yeah. For a family wedding. There's a lot of those that are coming up. It's that next generation of my family. So we missed one. We did it by Zoom. Not quite the same.
No, Zoom's just not the same, but it does the trick for now.
Yes. June 2nd. For a month. I'll be there for a month. My husband and I are going.
Incredible. Switching back to Goldie, I have a question for you. So you gave a rundown of your kind of foray into real estate where you were in PR, you left that job, it was a good job, you left your job to join a real estate company where you ended up being the top salesperson, as you said, not top woman, top salesperson who happens to be a woman. And after 20 years there, you decided on your own to start your own real estate company, which became the largest woman-owned commercial real estate company in the country. So
Thank
to
you.
say you are a successful woman, a little bit of an understatement, but as a successful woman, can you give us a peek behind the curtain into what was going through your head when you left your PR? You know, you left your comfortable PR job, and then again, you left a place where you were excelling for 20 years to start your own company. Why did you make the initial switch to real estate? And then what were your concerns and how did you overcome them in order to rise to where you are today?
You know, it's tough following you, Karen, because your story is so special. But you don't intimidate me, so I will try, okay?
I trust that to be the case, and I feel the same about following you.
Okay, so I guess my first answer, and I have an answer, of course, and I guess to some degree it's a little bit of a jealous answer. I didn't have a papa. I didn't have anybody to lead me in terms of a financial package. And when I was in public relations, I was with the best company in the country called J. Walter Thompson. And every time I achieved, I just got a bigger waste paper basket. You know, I never got the money that went along with it, right? So since I wasn't on a trust fund and had no other income, I wanted, and this is an important statement because I say it all the time, and if you heard it, I'm sorry, because I say it every time. I wanted my remuneration equal to my input. What does that mean? That means it's easy. I work hard, I make more money. I work harder, I make more money. It's not, you know, women are underpaid or men are paid better. It's a very even keel. My performance is equal to my remuneration, wanted remuneration, right? Number two, someone said, and it was smart, if you're going to go into sales, and I went into 60 interviews because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what area. I knew that I was driven, I guess is a good word. So then someone said, sell bridges instead of widgets. Number two, what smart advice is that? Of course, if I can be the salesman, why can't I sell the Brooklyn Bridge or the Sears Tower instead of pens? You know, who cares? You know, it's a question of, again, I'm totally admitted, remuneration is equal to input. I'm proud of it. When I was in advertising, I learned how to sell. Why? Because in advertising, you have a 30-second or 60-second commercial. Of course, you see it on television. In 30 to 60 seconds, you have to do AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action. 30 seconds. Now, what if I go in front of a client and say, I have a half hour or even an hour? So I learned that in terms of ability to sell, communicate. And I think I was also lucky, which is really important in this thing. And I see it certainly from Jessica, I see it from Karen, even from Jody, passion. I love real estate. When I talk to all these young people, and I hired all the people at Rubloff for, you know, 20 years, you have to have a passion for what you're doing. If it's a job, you might as well go work in a factory, put it in a little time clock and leave. But if you love what you're doing, and it became something for me, because I started my own company and I thought, I love it. It's part of my life. So when I left Rubloff, it wasn't by choice. They decided they didn't want to be a brokerage operation. They decided to be developers. And guess what year that was? Stupid. The year interest rates went to 21%. So obviously, you know, their company is no longer around and I'm still giving speeches. So, but this is an important factor in this. I did take a risk. Now, how many of us take risks in life? If you look at it and forget women, men, or whatever, it's a question of, and I've read enough of these surveys, women have a more difficult time taking risks. They like the comfort, whatever the reason is. So I did overcome. I did take a risk. I could have gone to another real estate company, but I had a theory in my life that is, I never wanted, I have to say this slow enough so I don't mush up the words. I never wanted to wish I would have, could have in my life. What does that mean? I didn't want at my age today say, I wish I could have, would have done this way back when, because I'm here now. And I can tell you, I did it. Now, I also had enough confidence, I think, that if it didn't work, and I tell all my young scholars, it wasn't a failure. I would have learned from it. If the company wouldn't have worked and we weren't successful, I'd pick up and say, okay, well, maybe I made a mistake. I'm entitled to make a mistake. I invested in one real estate development deal where I was a developer and I lost a ton of money, but I learned from it. I learned from it, which is really an important issue. And it goes back to this being persistent, hardworking, determined. It's not magical. Now, I do argue with some younger people today in terms of a balanced life. I never had one. A lot of people of my generation didn't. And I think that was just something that I didn't have a choice in terms of whatever. So I think that's what my story was. And I do have to add a couple of comments on here. What it's like being a woman in a man's world. I never thought of it that way. I was a professional. I was in advertising. I was a broker, and I was CEO of the largest company in the country that happened to be women owned. But I happened to be a woman. And I look at it as an advantage. Why is it an advantage? Because if you are the only one in the room, obviously, someone's going to pay attention. Now, if you open your mouth and you're an idiot, that's another story, right? But if you open your mouth and say something and it's worthwhile and you make a contribution, I have the same feeling about tall people, to be honest with you. I'm short. I used to wear big hats and big beehives, but I wanted to make a comment and it was to be remembered. And so I think as a woman, I think it's an advantage because I'm the smartest and the best as a material. It adds to who I am. And that's, you have to build that confidence. That's after lots of, maybe I didn't do this right and didn't do this right. But I think it's an attitude in terms of, and I hear this from the young people, they're the only woman in the room and sometimes they don't feel confident, I guess is the right word. But I think if you look at it as an advantage, and it is what it is, but that's if we have enough time, I want to tell you the Roger Staubach story. And I don't want to take all the time, but if you don't know who Roger Staubach is, plug it in and figure it out. He's the Heisman, I guess it was the Heisman football player, built one of the largest real estate companies in the country and sold it for $100 million. Well, that was my phone, sorry. And he always used an advantage. You know what he did? He used to send, he used to send 100 gold footballs to all the CEOs. Why? Because they salivated when they heard the name Roger Staubach, and they would meet with him even if he wasn't great. It happened to be he was smart, attractive, honest, hardworking, a wonderful guy, built a wonderful company. But you know what? He happened to be a Heisman Trophy winner, and he took it as an advantage. So, and every time I gave a speech with him at ULI, and I thought my speeches were pretty good, everybody ran to him. They did not run to me. No one asked for my autograph. No one wanted to, talk to me. So I think if we look at this as an advantage, I think that's great.
I agree. You have to go in with that mindset. And I also think it comes with time and experience, but it's a mindset to use who you are as an advantage in what you do.
And I feel like you get asked that question a lot, right? How do you feel about being a woman in a male dominated industry? And my response oftentimes feels similar to Goldie's. I know that I'm fortunate because I work in my family business. So that's sort of a leg up to begin with, because I have a comfort with the people I work with. When I speak to people who do ask that and are having a more challenging time, I try to sort of understand their perspective and give clear advice on the kind of tools or conversations they could be having to feel more comfortable in a space where they might not. One of those things is to find the female role models that work, like Goldie and Karen. I'll probably be calling you after this meeting's over. But it's also to find any role model or any mentor that works, because you can create a connection with somebody, not just based on gender. And it's International Women's Day, and being a woman and supporting women is very important, but you can also support women by saying, hey, connect with that person who went to the same university you did, or who's working on a project in a similar neighborhood for a competitor, might benefit from some of your perspective and your approach. So thinking about the different ways that you can build relationships is really important, because those relationships, whether they're with a female or a male mentor, are really they're the people that will help support you as you navigate the challenging early stages of your career.
Can I just interject? My husband's in the making lunch. Jack, can you move? You're on
Poor Jack. Oh, poor Jack.
take the stage away from me, and I'm not going to tell him he can't do that. No one can do that. So you have to get
Yeah.
out of my. Thank you.
Nobody
Not on
puts Goldie in the
International
corner.
That's right. That's right. Jessica, I'm actually going to turn it a bit serious right now, because what you do, your role right now, especially in New York City, but all over the country, is extremely important. You know, this country is facing a housing crisis. Pre-pandemic, we had upwards of 12 million low-income households competing for 3 million affordable housing units. So 12 million low-income households competing for approximately 3 million affordable housing, and those numbers are much worse now, 2 years later. So while women make up 50% of the workforce, they make up the majority of employees making minimum wage. Not to mention that 60% of children who live in poverty live with single mothers. I think it's fair to say that your focus on affordable housing has never been more important. And so what are some of the goals that you're trying to achieve when you're developing an affordable housing project? And specifically, do you take into consideration social services, say it like that are incorporated into the building, that are geared towards women to help them succeed and maybe get out of the affordable housing developments?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I would start with saying, first off, that the statistics you share are obviously concerning and were only made worse during the pandemic. The affordability crisis is a real one. And also that, you know, hearing Goldie's amazing story and thinking about what's going on around the world today, not just with the affordability crisis in New York, but people in other countries such as Ukraine who are removed from their homes, the importance of stable housing. You know, there's a connection to people, and my passion for helping people is what makes working in affordable housing so rewarding, and it's why I find it so important. When we look at projects, you know, we're fortunate in New York to have a number of really strong government agencies who are oftentimes our partners. So HUD, HPD, NYCHA, state agencies who help us understand the areas where affordable housing really is needed. And you don't need an agency to help you understand that. You live in the city and you understand, but there's programs aimed at, you know, family housing, for example, mixed middle income family housing, that ensures that affordable housing projects have family sized units, 2 and 3 bedrooms instead of just studios, for very low and moderate income families who otherwise would be spending so much of their money on rent that they'd either have to leave the city or they would just be rent burdened and not have funds available for other important costs in their lives. We're lucky that in addition to our government partners, there's a number of strong nonprofits in New York who we work with both as development partners and also as social service providers. For example, on a preservation project we're working on in Brooklyn, we're partnered with University Settlement, who interviewed and gave surveys to over 2,000 apartments, 2,000 homes. And we took the information we got to put together a new suite of social services to provide help where families need it. Similarly, we're able to work with community groups to identify at a particular project that there might be a need for family housing or housing for seniors or veterans or women. And there's ways to work those kind of preferences into the projects we work on. Yeah.
Let me just add one thing. Of all the scholars we interview, what group do you think they, you know, we have finance and economics and management, and lawyers. What group do you think most of them are interested in?
Development.
Affordable housing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
this year more than any other year. We've had them, I guess finance was 3-4 years ago, and we look across the board and we try to make it. Affordable housing is the key thing they all come back with.
Yeah, and it's an interesting space to be right now. I think affordable housing and workforce housing are sort of hot areas right now. There's a huge need, and people identify that it's somewhere they want to work and somewhere they can have a real impact. When you think about the pressures that are sort of in place in the affordable housing space right now, it's the increase of people who need access to affordable housing. It's the increase in land prices. So we're, in New York, as I said, there's a lot of government agencies and nonprofits that we work closely with, and across the country, we're really starting to talk to different government agencies, different organizations, to see ways that we can bring some of the programs that have been effective here to other markets where there's a lot of people in need of high quality affordable housing.
That's amazing and unbelievably important work right now. So just incredible. I want to open it up to the larger group. We're running out of time just a little bit, but I have some questions here. So if anybody wants to send in questions, you can. I'm not sure that I'll get to them. I'm going to open up with one. We may have time for one or two. I have one here from Adam Lipkin in South Florida. He asks, oftentimes our greatest breakthroughs come after our greatest breakdowns. Curious to hear an experience from each of the panelists when it comes to this topic. Is there anybody who would like to take the floor first?
I'll take it. When I was 27, I had, my husband had been diagnosed with a brain tumor well before CT scans or any of this nuclear medicine. It was inoperable. And I was pregnant. I gave birth to our son, and my husband died a few months later. Through that experience, I came to meet Judson, my husband now, which is the last name Kennedy. He passed the health test within our family, which was the #1 priority in my mother and dad's minds for obvious reasons. And he is now 84, almost 85 years old. I'm happy to say I was the child bride. And through that experience, I realized that life turns on a dime. I married a man when I was young, getting out of college, who was very, very healthy. And he died in my arms. And I've been able to overcome the fear that that puts in you, and it makes you less stable potentially if you let it. Or you can rise and realize that there's so much goodness in life, and you can choose to look at the good and leave the rest on the floor and learn from it. And that's what I've chosen to do in my life. And that's not always easy. It's very hard to leave to find the stability when your world turned upside down when I was so young. But I did. And I'm very proud of what I've been able to accomplish and the family that I have a daughter and 2 sons. And it's been remarkable. And my husband Judson is very healthy. So, yes.
Wow, it really is hard to follow you, Karen. I mean, that's incredible. Sorry that you had to go through that, but what
Yes, but
an amazing lesson.
It's true though. You choose to get up in the morning and look at the world as a bright place or as a dark place. You can make that choice every day. Some days it's more difficult and than other days. But that's a choice we make as individuals. And with that, you get to open doors or you can leave them closed. It's up to each of us as individuals and to be there to support each other. Sometimes the most nothing comment that I make has ripple effects that I can't even imagine. And then years later, right, Goldie and Jessica, probably to a lesser degree because you're younger, I'll put you in that category. But people come up to me years later and they say, I heard you talking at a group and blah, blah, and I decided I was going to take risks. Like,
okay. Let me add one little statement onto that, because I think I'd like to be heard. If you have nothing else to do in life, look under Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena speech. And I think they now say it's funny because now it's the woman in the arena. And I think there's just something to be thoughtful about. without going into it, the fact that you're in there, the fact that you're competing, the fact that you're involved, the fact that you're trying, the fact that you're not giving up, you may not be the chosen group, but the fact that you're in the arena, I told that to my granddaughter who's going to college, the fact that you're in a competitive environment, the fact that you're going after a job, the fact that you're in life with your kids, the fact, whatever it is, you are in the arena, and Teddy Roosevelt says it so much better. It's a very upbeat, but it's a very positive thing for people today, for our young people today, and certainly the young people that I work with, and to be heard. So read it. If you got young kids or old kids, print it, put it on a wall, and obviously change it to the woman in the arena, because we don't really care about the men in the arena. So, but I think it's relevant to today and where we are today. And you got to be the, as I think as Karen and Jessica are saying, and even Jody, you got to look at the positive. If you didn't look at the positive and you didn't turn it the right way, as my folks did, as everybody else did on this speech, we would not be in a good position in the future. And these young people are doing it, and we have to help them do that.
Yep, it's about finding meaning in these things that keep us going and make us better. Agreed. Wow. I don't think we have time for another question, but I'm going to close this out, and I cannot thank enough Goldie, Jessica, Karen, for sharing your stories and inspiring all of us to be better professionals, philanthropists, and Israel supporters. Everything we do at the Jewish National Fund USA, every project, every initiative, every campaign we take on is integral to the vision of building and connecting to our homeland. I encourage you all to get involved in JNF's real estate division and join our family. Membership begins at $1,800 with major donor societies starting at $5,000. If you have any questions about JNF's work, please reach out to a JNF professional who will be happy to help you. And we want to thank you so much for joining us today and wish you a wonderful day.